A lot of deception, and in the end you don't always get your man.
She dances, she sings, she acts, and she tells funny stories. Oh, is there no end to her talent? Here's Mary Hardy.
Now I'll tell you where the hitch is. You see, these charming ladies exhaust their talents by the light of day. I'm glad you're listening, so that when the sports are over and the male is seeking clover, that's when I turn that clover into hay.
Throughout Australia's 50-year television history, there was one trailblazing talent who broke down the doors and paved the way for female entertainers. She was known simply as Mary.
The two kids she's not even looking at, they're drowning at the back. She couldn't care less about the kids. She's got Ian's money, she's got the pool. She doesn't have to put up with Ian, he's gone to God. And I mean, isn't it beautiful? Wouldn't you love to be that wife?
Mary Hardy was the queen of television and radio in Melbourne throughout the 60s and 70s and won 7 Logie Awards.
I don't want to thank anybody.
But there was a dark side.
For it is Mary.
For someone so well loved, Mary has faded from the public's memory, but her influence lives on.
I know a lot of really strong, funny women who I think would just adore her and adore seeing her, and I have no idea why that hasn't been accessible or made accessible.
She was dangerous. There was something about her that was a loose cannon.
I always say this about Mary. She was Joan Rivers before there was Joan Rivers.
This very powerful woman cutting down a path that for others that she probably didn't even realise she was doing, but she did. And I think that we owe her.
Mary Hardy burst onto the Melbourne theatre scene in 1957.
I'm flying! I'm flying! Help!
Somebody to tell us about that incredible performance, actor, writer, raconteur, your very good friend of many years, John Michael Howson.
Well, this is the beautiful Princess Theatre in Melbourne. It was here in sometime in the mid to late 50s that I first saw Mary Hardy. She was appearing in Peter Pan, and she had a flying scene, and she flew out over the audience. But something went wrong with the harness or the flying gadgetry, and she just kept spinning around and around and around. And over the Princess Theatre with all the children licking their ice creams and quite amazed at seeing Peter flying, the magic word flew out. Not once, but several times, like, ah, get me out of here. So I thought, I just love her. I just love her.
Born in 1931, Mary Hardy was determined to become an actress from the time she was a child. She grew up in rural Bacchus Marsh, the youngest of 8 children. Her elder brother, Frank, would become a notorious communist and author of Power Without Glory.
You had several brothers. Frank Hardy is the best known of them.
Right. He's the radical, we call him, because we were a Catholic family. Now, it was very difficult. I'm the youngest, you see, because my father died when I was 10, and then Frank went away to be a radical, as we called it. We never said any other word. Radical was the only word allowed in the house.
After Mary's father died, her mother moved the family to Melbourne.
I never quite knew how Mary existed in those days, in the days of Peter Pan, because she'd get a job here and a job there. I know she worked as a corset fitter, measuring women for corsets, and she had all these strange jobs. Where are you working this week, darling? Oh, I'm working in the shoe factory or whatever. Anyway, between all this, she'd get jobs in shows.
I was praying for me to go to Hollywood, but I went only to Melbourne. And I lived with my other 4 brothers now, because we've got the sisters married, and there's a lot of us, and there's the 4 boys left, and they're giving me hell, because now I've started in the theatre. And now I'm changed altogether. I'm chatting like that, and I'm calling beret, and I'm having a marvellous time and playing Shakespeare, and they're bored.
But Mary's life changed forever when her mother died and her siblings all left home. She found herself alone.
And there was a profound sense of loss about that, because she used to adopt other people's mothers as her mother, which she did with my mother. And that was why she was creating surrogate families everywhere, because she missed her own family. She adopted me. That's the only word I can use. My life would have been entirely different if I hadn't have met Mary when she was swinging around here screaming abuse at the technicians. She took me into a theatrical ambience, and that was great. And also great for gay people, because you can be gay in the theatre. You know, it was no big deal. So we were surrounded by people who were like ourselves, and that was great. And now I wouldn't have had any of that experience to be taken into this giant family of the entertainment business and feel very much at ease with myself.
Get in first, write your own book, put as much filth that you've done, because someone will find out about it anyway.
Mary was great at bringing out the best in people as performers. She encouraged me to write. She'd say, "You're a good writer, you're a good writer." And I only wish she was alive today to see the fact that all those years that I did, you know, chatting and yabbering in the electronic media, that now I'm doing what I should have been doing years ago and writing, thank God, co-writing very successful shows.
Lord knows to my surprise, the only one who could ever reach me was the son of the preacher man.
Following her success in Peter Pan, Mary became a full-time actor with the Union Theatre Company.
Women is more than a beast of burden, me boy. No, the engagement's all. I'm going away. Where to? I don't know.
In 1963, her performance in Mystery of a Handsome Cab was filmed for television. TV star Noel Ferrier was impressed by her performance, and in 1964 he asked Mary to join the cast of his successful show.
This is Noel Ferrier's In Melbourne Tonight.
Yoo-hoo, Piggy darling! Here I am, over here, Piggy darling!
I bought you some sherry, some lovely, lovely sherry.
Thank you, darling. I just love sherry. I always get some sherry at art exhibitions.
In my opinion, if you wanted to be in live-to-air television, Channel 9 in Melbourne was the only place to be.
Well, it's only a dance, so who cares? I came here by chance uninvited. Well, yes, I was excited. You feel a bit bold when you walk in cold on your own and everyone stares.
They all came from a theatre background, and they did funny English review things and right away from the normal kind of thing, and it worked pretty well for a while.
In that domestic scene, you saw Tony Lamond, Mary Hardy, Keith Eden and Freddie Parslow.
The public loved Mary, and she was soon asked to present a segment with the King, Graham Kennedy.
She'd join Graham and they'd talk and backwards and forwards and do jokes and so on, but it was fairly short-lived, as I understand it.
It was an odd sort of love-hate thing that they had on camera, but if she felt that Graham had got the better of her on camera, a rage would come out of her because she had felt that Graham had trodden on a laugh line, had cut her business short or whatever.
She was probably prepared to go one step further than Graham, or be louder or funnier or whatever it was required, and, you know, sooner or later no one got that opportunity, and I think they sort of moved her out from there. Ultimately, she wasn't going to take a backward step for anybody, and I think that was the end of it.
There were two archetypes for women on the stage and in music hall and vaudeville, and they were the bimbo and the battle axe. Now, it goes back to silent movies, really. You know, you've got the husband really, you know, chasing after the bimbo, and you've got the battle axe running behind the dressing gown with the rolling pin. You know, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you. And that became the accepted norm on TV when it moved from vaudeville to television. In the middle of all these archetypes, of course, you've got Mary Hardy. Now, what is she? Where does she fit in to this? She doesn't fit anywhere. She's a ballsy, intelligent, wisecracking chick in a landscape that doesn't recognise that.
When she left In Melbourne Tonight, Mary focused her extraordinary talents for ad-libbing on a radio show she co-hosted with Noel Ferrier.
It's Noel Napoleon, Wary Mary, coming to you from the Greater 3UZ, and it's 15 minutes past 9 o'clock.
Don't turn us. Don't you hit me.
Mary, come here.
No,
Mary. You never thought that you'd ever hear a man striking a woman on radio, did you, girls?
Do you know, most successful radio show every day, based on just comedy, just great comedy. How they did it 3 hours every day, I'll never know.
God is conserved. What do we all say, girls, all together? Get the big one!
Mary was popular because she came from the ranks. The public make you successful. You don't make yourself successful. She was aware of that, and she spoke not down to people, she spoke to people about the experiences of her life, but made it sound hilariously funny. And sometimes it wasn't hilariously funny. It was the laughter covered up a lot of pain.
Look, speaking of the big ones, has reminded me to say hello to all the prop boys down at the old channel, dear, Channel 9. They're very loyal, and they've been listening, dear, and they said we're not allowed to say poof again.
Really?
Yes, we have.
So what sort of route would one have to Serge or with Serge? Have you taken a lady home and put Serge on in the hope that just underpants will drop? Do you think? My memory of her is just a whirling dervish, this big blur of colour and movement and noise, so much noise, just a big belly laugh. She was a walking, talking belly laugh, which is a grand thing to be around. Mary and I got along very well. She saw something in me that she wanted to look after. The older I got and the more curious I became about her and her life and realising how much she'd done. It was a great voyage of discovery.
Little girl, what are you doing here all by yourself?
Nothing.
Where are your parents?
Haven't got a dad. Mum's at the office.
I've just grown up in television and with theatre actors as parents and a writer as a grandfather and just stuck with the family business, I suppose.
She looks like a boy. Sally, just belt up.
I think the teenage years of acting for me weren't as fun because I started to realise I wasn't very good at it and that I was probably a better writer. But at that stage, even though I had parents who were both television writers, I couldn't figure out how to get my head around the fact that I could write.
Neighbour, everybody needs good neighbours.
Well, I storylined for a year at Neighbours and then wrote freelance for them on and off for 6 or 7 years. I mean, pretty much everyone I know has written for Neighbours in the industry. And then I haven't stopped, really. I haven't stopped writing for that long. Then got Last Man Standing Up with Channel 7, which I wrote and co-produced as well.
It's a generational thing. We've been over 35 and not looking for a casual route and see you later. She want commitment. She want kids.
Have you talked about marriage yet? We've had sex once.
We talked about your marriage.
I guess I think about Mary more and more the more my career remains in media and I've explored different kinds of media and start getting back into television through the book show. I'm desperately sad that I can't share this with her, really sad, because I think she would have been great to knock heads with and get a bit of advice from, get a lot of advice from. So I think that's a great tragedy for me personally.
By the early 70s, Mary was hosting her own show on Radio 3AW. At the same time, she was invited by Channel 7 to co-host their new Saturday night show.
Here's Mary Hardy with Shirlene Clancy.
In the cool, cool, cool of the evening.
Channel 7 owned the rights to the harness racing, or the trots as it was called in those days, and it ran from, I think about 8 to 8:30 for a couple of hours. And all it was, the Penthouse Club was propping up the races. There's 20 minutes between each race, roughly, and all they did was fill in between the races. What are we going to do? OK, we'll do a show.
We're going to be starring Maria Venuti.
Mother Venuti's coming.
Neil Williams.
Neil Williams. Oh.
Holly Brown.
Holly Brown, who's got silicon.
Oh, don't be like that. Tony Grant.
Really?
We've got the trotters out at the showgrounds.
Right
Let's
now.
go over there.
Let's have a trot.
The trots, yes, they were a frustration to all of us, but if the trots weren't there, there wouldn't have been a show at all. So we had to make the best of it.
And now back home to Victoria for the most popular female here.
All right, everybody, get ready for this. Mary Hardy.
Mary Hardy, one of the stalwarts of Victorian television, co-compere of Penthouse Club. That's a very
Despite its limitations, Penthouse Club became enormously successful, and Mary won a string of Logies.
Mary was the main reason the Penthouse Club was successful for so long. She had the charisma and the public on side to make it work, and she kept making it work.
Last of the main group, Blood Diamond, and a long gap to Roulette.
Well, we came to Melbourne and there was this show that my parents used to like to watch on a Saturday night. My father liked to bet on horses, and so the trots were on, so we'd watch this Penthouse Club thing. And this woman, Mary Hardy, was on. And the reason why I think I was interested was that they were laughing at a woman, and I'd never actually seen that before. And I used to watch her and think, she's incredible. Like, she was incredibly rude sometimes, you know, irreverent, all these things, but she was a larrikin. I was a girl that could make people laugh, and here was a girl making people laugh. And it was more years later when I started doing comedy that Mary's name would come up, and I felt quite honoured because people would compare me in some ways to her. It was actually, I was at the ABC working on Countdown. We used to be employed as dancers just really to get the crowd going and stuff like that. And I was mucking around impersonating Molly, and Molly saw me. Then I got a job on a show called The Factory, which was then where I began.
Is father of the bride and mother of the bride. That is Mr. Andrew Peacock, who used to be the leader of the Liberal Party until he was voted out. And that's, I can't really remember her name because it changes all the time. Follow me, Mr. Hawke, I'll show you out.
Oh, you again.
Yeah.
Then The Factory got axed to make way for Countdown Revolution. Mark Little and I as the hosts. And we thought it'd be a great idea to put on a mock strike. Hilarious.
Tonight we are doing something never before attempted in Australian television. People, we're asking you to back us. And we're asking you to back us, and if you don't think you're going to back us, leave now.
Management didn't actually think that was very hilarious at all, and we got sacked via fax.
You know why?
And in fact, as much as I kind of brush it aside, it was actually a really devastating time of my life because I had gone too far and I had pushed the limit to the point where there was no going back this time.
We have the numbers here of all the ABCs across Australia. If you want to back us, we want you to call. Jam up the exchange.
Oh God, I couldn't get employed to save myself. You know, it was too risky. I was regarded as a risk element. And, you know, it took many years before I could even walk into a TV station. You know, people just didn't want to know. I just woke up one day and just thought, this is not where I wanted to end up. And so I kind of let it die a little bit and decided to cut my own path. I've realised that I'm happiest when I'm writing, creating the project and then performing in it, which is essentially where I started. There's an element to Mary that I relate to, which is that kind of tragic clown thing, you know, that self-sabotaging element, which I work very hard to control, which fortunately I have a great support network, so it's easier for me, and I think that for Mary, it wasn't so easy because she was alone.
In 1974, Mary became the first woman to say on Australian television. She was suspended by the Broadcast Control Board.
All I said was, but I said the magic word. I wouldn't say, oh, golly gosh. I mean, when you burn your hand at home, you know, on the thing, you don't say heavens above. I just do that. I mean, I could be heard in Perth without the microphones.
If anyone was going to say it, Mary would say it. There's no doubt about that. It was an accident. I mean, she really didn't mean to say it, but because she hurt her hand, she just let it fly, you know.
The control board eventually accepted Mary's apology, and she was soon back on air.
Yes, our special guest next week is Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra doing a duet.
Are they coming again?
Called the Mafia Rock.
We keep trying to keep them away, but we'll let them in if we can. Bye, boy. Have a happy day tomorrow. Bye-bye.
But that was really old-fashioned then, because we knew about Johnny Carson, we knew about the fancy American shows. There was the Penthouse Club, this most daggiest show in the entire world.
Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl.
You know, it was hopelessly out of fashion.
It was a Channel 7 production. Channel 7, in my view, never really kind of went into things with enough money to make them work.
I really haven't had the privilege to introduce this man the way that I would like to. And I'm
Just get it on air, mate. Don't give us a problem. It's fine.
But tonight, this man has condescended, and I mean condescended. I know, that's it. I'm trying to hang out till the races start. And it's...
There was no meetings about excellence or what can we do to help you make this better. They didn't care. They just let it roll. The sport was what's important.
A portrait of my life.
In 1979, Penthouse Club was axed.
It's very simple. When you've had very little in your life and suddenly, by happenstance, you get on television and they say, we're going to pay you a lot of money just to be what you are and do what you do for free. You said, this is the best lurk I've ever had. And as the work comes in and the checks get bigger and bigger, you lose sight of what you want to do. And I think that's what happened to Mary. The money seduced her away from the hard work and discipline of being the great actress she potentially could have been.
Years of working live in television and radio had placed Mary under enormous strain.
Mary had personal problems, romantic problems, and she was an insomniac. It was very difficult for her to go through the night, and so she started taking sleeping pills. And then, of course, next day you have to take stimulants to get over the sleeping pill thing. This became a terrible habit, and she became addicted to it. Now, after a while, that does affect your behaviour.
She was the greatest ad-libber and wit, but you see, that wit and that ability to work without scripts was a manic thing, and the other side was depression.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Jeff, and I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, that I am sick up to here of being told that I cannot talk, that I cannot do this and cannot do that, and so I'm walking out now. I've never done this in my life. I'm very sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.
Ultimately, the radio thing started to fall apart for presumably her behaviour and her lack of discipline. And as an agent, I tried to get her a couple of jobs here and there, just to go to a shopping centre, pick up $500, say hello, and go home. But a couple of those fell through. She'd ring up on the day, and they'd promoted the whole thing, and Mary Hardy will be here at 4 o'clock at Southland or something, and she'd ring on the day, oh, sorry, darling, I can't make it today. You think, hang on. So a couple of those came up, and I just thought, too hard.
Despite her tarnished reputation, Mary was offered a part in an international theatre production. But while promoting the show, she mocked the producer on live television.
Talk about your play. I want to talk about your play.
Oh, sure.
First, I want to talk.
I've got to do that because Ken Broderick is watching, and he's going to come
Ken Broderick is watching? Hello, Ken. It's nice to have you join the show.
If you send me up, you did on the Bert Newton show the other morning, do my voice, I'm going to have no opening night. No opening night. And I said, I can't learn the lines anyway. So now, the title is, now this, I'm in trouble for a start. You pick up the thing and you think, haven't done anything for 10 years, right? I've ad-libbed for 10 years.
That's right. This is your first trip back on the stage in 10 years.
For 10 years.
Right, yeah. What's it called?
It's called I've got to get this right. Ken, are you watching, sweetheart? Get ready. Come on. Don't let you lose your little Judith temper. He's Judith. I know about his nose. He had his nose done when he came. I remember when you
The following day, Mary was dumped from the production.
I've always said talent comes wrapped in strange packages. People that are great talents are not ordinary people. Allow yourself to be so exposed, to be walking on a knife edge or a tightrope wire night after night, or your whole life is based on that. The insecurities are incredible, and that does create odd behaviour.
Now unemployed, Mary retreated to her small Melbourne flat and became a virtual recluse.
Towards the end, I found it almost unbearable to be with her because she would rage. She raged because there was nowhere to put the talent. Her physiology was low, mental capacity was, and it was horrible because I kept seeing the girl that swung around. You know, that was it, and it was terribly painful, awful.
The body of the former stage, radio and television star was found by two relatives and a friend, fully clothed in the bath of her upstairs apartment on Beaconsfield Parade. Nearby was a shotgun. The violent death brought to an end the life of the girl from Bacchus Marsh, who went on to become the queen of Australian television.
We loved her and we cared for her, and we did what we could do. What more could we do but love her and care for her and say, have an open door? So there is an anger about that, and it was a terrible death. But I just feel that and it is wishful thinking, that if we could have got over that hump, she would today maybe be a grand old lady of entertainment or something.
But it was Mary, long before the fashions came.
Thank God she was there. Thank God she made us laugh, and thank God she was unusual, because can you imagine if we had all those bland people on TV? What would it be without her?
For it is Mary.
I just thought, wow, she was fantastic. She was spectacular. So, yeah, absolutely. I think she was ring-a-ding-ding.
She encouraged me. And I don't think I would have been doing today what I am doing if it hadn't been for her all those years ago. I wish she'd been around. I'd have written a part for her.
And there is something there that sounds so square. It's a grand old name.
For it is Mary, plain as any name can be. But with propriety, society will say.
Hot out of the oven, a freshly baked, never before sampled.
I'm not a